Let's go. Okay. Let's check what's going on. LiveStream looks like it's working. The event seems to be live. Mute my own stream. Perfect. Turn down the music just a little bit. And let's wait for people to start joining in. Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream number 4. Please let me know if all the tech works. I'm slowly improving my camera setup and the stream, so as I'm learning by doing. The plan is, like always, we're gonna wait 10 minutes before we start the presentation, give the people a chance to join into the event, and then we go into the meat of the presentation. But if you're just joining in, say hello, write a comment. I would love to hear from you. Paste the event again, and we're live. Hello Peter, welcome, nice to meet you again. Nice to see you joining the stream. How's the sound, guys? Audio levels good? Is there any delay somewhere? The one thing I would wish that LinkedIn fixed is this socket connection issue that they have, where comments are not really coming in on time, and then you need to keep smashing the refresh button. You can see more people are now starting to join, and that's amazing. We've had 53 or something like that registrations, and I'm really happy that it's growing week by week. So for everyone who's new here, welcome. We're going to be talking about how to grow your tech team strategically. Previous week we were talking about what's my secret sauce to create a fantastic tech team. And this week we'll take that small fantastic tech team and try to scale it up and avoid the traps that are often too common. Yes, there's also a YouTube link. I'll share it in the comments. So if you want to watch on YouTube, I just pasted a comment. You can just copy paste that link and go in. 9 people already in the stream. That's amazing to see. And some people are saying that it's not as good on LinkedIn, the quality itself, and it does seem that the live streaming functionality is a little bit wonky. I wonder how all the tech layoffs are going to be affecting it. LinkedIn just lost a bunch of tech people as well, and I don't like to see that. So we're gonna start 10 past, give the people a chance to join. Peter says the sound is good on my side, so we've got the basics down. If you already have some questions or something that you would like me to cover, just write it in the comments down below, and we'll talk about it. The format is as always, I'm gonna go through the presentation. It's not gonna be too long, maybe 20-30 minutes, and then we'll have a discussion where you can post your questions and write your opinions, because I would love to hear what you think and about your experience with either being in a tech team that was growing or growing one yourself, and what kind of challenges you're facing. Recently I just got on a new project, and it's been quite interesting because I've never done work with browser extensions before, and they're quite a little bit different. Trying to figure out cross-browser compatibility. There's this Chrome to Safari converter that Apple offers. I need to test it out today. Basically take an existing Chrome extension and try to make a Safari one out of it. But I'm curious how broken that is, if that's you convert it and then it kind of works, or it's you convert it and it's completely broken and you end up rewriting the majority of it. Three more minutes and then we jump into it. If you have any wishes on which direction you would like me to go in the future live streams, also write that in the comments or just send me a message. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. The general idea was to go through a journey and look at it from a perspective like when you're starting out building a product team and then doing your first MVP, what do you need? Maybe you don't have a tech team yet, so the first stream was about what are the prerequisites before you even get a tech team. Then we were talking about, okay, now we have that part kind of figured out, and we want to see how to actually build a tech team that performs. But we're going to go briefly over that in just a second. And all the recordings from the previous episodes are on YouTube as well, so you can go and find my channel through the comments on the side, and yeah, you can watch the previous episodes because it's a continuation of a series. So if you wanna see what happens before you actually are scaling a tech team, maybe you're interested in the MVP approach on how to actually build and figure out what to build, and that you can rewatch that. Okay, one more minute and then we go. Hey Dennis. Yeah. One more minute and we go into it. Perfect. Who's ready to kick this off? Come on, give me some thumbs up. Let's see some energy from you as well. And I know the crazy thing is that as I'm saying that, it goes through my camera, my processing unit, it goes through LiveStream. It needs to be processed all the way, 3 times across the internet. So, but by the time you hear what I'm saying, it's already 2 minutes later, probably. But I think we are ready to start. Okay. I'm gonna stop the music and let's get this show on the road. So welcome everyone to live stream number 4. It's the 4th week in a row where I'm doing this, and I'm really happy because the audience keeps growing from event to event. I'm also learning from event to event, so these things are getting better, which makes me more comfortable on camera, but also creates a better experience for you guys, hopefully without any technical difficulties. And like before, if something happens, something breaks, just write it in the chat and start spamming the light bulb emoji. Or maybe you will break the system if you are getting too many insights. But that's how you can reach me. If I'm gonna keep an eye on my second screen and just monitor if things are going smoothly. But today we're talking about scaling tech teams in a strategic way, so you don't just burn money by doing it. Let's dive into the presentation. So first a recap from the previous live stream, where we're talking about how to build a fantastic tech team. And first of all, what even is a fantastic tech team? And we delved into 3 parts: autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and how we unintentionally design workplaces that take autonomy and destroy mastery and kill purpose. And that leads to a lot of frustration within the tech team. They become defensive, and you are not getting the kind of confident, technically excellent, solution-oriented team that you would need in order to build great products. And that just leads to frustration all across the board. So we're talking about some secret sauce on how to align the tech team with the business goals and how to create a tech team that has that mojo, that's really dynamic and fun to work with and solution oriented, not seeing problems but saying yes, give me a complex problem, I want to solve that. So the most boring thing that we probably touched on was how to have efficient meetings, and then we talked about how to nurture positive traits like communication, interpersonal skills, how to have difficult conversations within the tech team, and how necessary it is to do that, to not be shy and try to hide from those feelings, because healthy conflict leads to a resolution and to an improvement. Whereas if you are just keeping things in, they slowly disintegrate. Then we were talking about continuous improvement, how important it is for the tech team to get small wins and then increase the size of those wins. We were talking about how to keep learning and improving. We also talked about how to focus on the individual strengths of each team member. So if you have introverts, they a lot of times have a valuable contribution to make. But the problem usually is that extroverts take over the room. So if you don't accommodate for differences in characteristics, you're going to lose a lot of potential. And the final most important thing was how to focus on how important it is to align the whole thing towards a common goal, so that it's not us versus them, like tech team versus the product team versus sales, but it is to have integrated teams with one focus that say we know where to go, we are aligned with the vision, we see the business goal, and they charge, right? That was a quick recap of what we talked before, and if you want to check out that presentation, you can also do that through YouTube and get up to speed after the event. But now you have a fantastic tech team. It's small, it's efficient. We've hopefully all been in one of those teams where things just work. There's chemistry, there's energy, there's a problem-solving mindset, and you really are looking forward to come to work every day because you have great colleagues and the dynamics are fantastic. It doesn't mean that there's no conflict, that everything's smooth running, there's no problems. It just means that you're looking forward to dealing with the problems because you know that your team has your back. And that's easier to do when the team is small because everyone is in the same room or even online. There's only so many people to talk to, so the communication overhead is really low. We want to keep that as we scale. We want to keep that essence. So how do you scale it without compromising this core that we have nurtured? That's what we are going to address today. But before we jump right in, let's ask ourselves, why do we need to scale? And that's a question that is often not asked because of course we need to scale. We are a startup, we want to be a unicorn, we want to have 150 developers, 300, 5,000. But sometimes it's better to keep things small, especially when you have when you don't have a long-term plan or a vision of how you want to structure the organization. Adding people can actually decrease your progress. Here are some of the reasons why you should scale your tech team. Maybe there's an increased product demand and you need to develop new features. Over time, of course, as new features are added and you accommodate new user profiles and your product becomes more complex, that increases the engineering effort required to keep everything running. There's more overhead in infrastructure, there's more components to it that need to be maintained, and every line of code that you write and add to the system makes it more complex and harder to maintain. There's also technical debt that can accumulate either consciously or unconsciously, and if you want to at the same time remove technical debt but also develop new features, you will need more people to do that. There might be skill gaps in your small team. Maybe you don't have a data scientist on your team and you could really use one. So you hire new people to fill the gaps in knowledge. Maybe you want to reduce the cognitive load on the team. Let's say when the team is small, all the responsibilities are shared between the team members and you need to think about 5 different things, 10 different things. Maybe you're responsible for writing code, but also for the deployment pipeline. And as the team grows, you can take some of that responsibility, give it to your colleague who is a DevOps engineer, and he can be responsible for that. So your cognitive load now decreases because you don't have to think about both things. Of course, you're still involved in the deployment, but somebody else is actually writing the scripts. And that's the pain of my existence, when somebody else takes my deployment scripts away. Don't touch them. There's a symptom that I call the tyranny of the backlog, where as the organization grows, maybe some other departments grew faster than the tech team itself, and they start demanding a lot more because everybody needs tech. So they start to fill the backlog with features and they seem to pile up, and the tech team is doing their best to deliver, but the feeling that the other departments get is, my God, our tech team is so slow, we should hire more people, why is it not moving? And you start feeling the pressure that, okay, let's scale quickly. And especially dangerous in this situation is where the company has the money to actually open the floodgates. Maybe you will just hire a bunch of engineers that will join the team in a way that's bad for the business because they will not be properly onboarded, properly integrated, which will further slow down progress. So you need to be really careful in that kind of situation. That's this, we need more people now feeling that I'm sure many of you have felt before. Now let me tell you a story about how we failed to scale too fast. I was working at a company where we had a small core team which was amazing, mostly senior people who knew what we were doing, and we were really aligned with the vision and the goal of the company, and we had the autonomy to get there however we felt best. And there was a lot of tension within the team because we pulled in different directions, but we could resolve that efficiently when the team was small. Fortunately, there was plenty of money and a lot of features that we wanted to build, so we hired people. We hired people in a time where there was pressure to deliver, which means that instead of focusing on delivery itself, we were focusing on onboarding new members, and that totally destroyed the progress that we were seeing. And that's a very common thing that I see, is when you're just feeling this pressure, and maybe the right question is that you need to ask yourself is, when is the right time to scale, and how do you do it strategically so that you actually increase productivity and not decrease it. Let's go back to the presentation. By the way, if you have some questions, write them in the comments already, and we will get to them at the end. So the question is there a better way to do it? We're going to take a look at two levels, the strategic one and the tactical one. On the strategic level, you should look at forecasting future needs of your company and plan for success. It means that the people who will be joining need to be productive soon. Because scaling is investment into your tech team, which on the short term decreases your capacity, because hiring is work, onboarding is work, integrating is work, teaching is a lot of work, mentoring is a lot of work. So just bringing people in, especially if that's happening too fast at a pace that you cannot sustain, will really tank your progress as you're dealing with all the new members and all the work that comes with onboarding a new member. So the question to ask is, what pace can you afford? And then adjust your hiring needs to that pace that you can sustain. And there are ways, we're going to look at some tactical level things that you can do to increase the pace of your hiring. Another strategic question is how to break up and structure your teams, because when they grow up from a certain angle, they become unmanageable. But before we touch on that, let's first look at this. I love bringing up Conway's law. It's present overall, but it applies not only to software engineering, but also to organizational design. And those two are intertwined. So Conway's law says the communication structures that you have inside the organization will tend to produce software that mimics those communication channels, right? And when you take a look at the organizational design, that's going to have an impact on your software architecture. So you need to keep that in mind as you're scaling, because if you break up the team into many small teams too early, you will get microservices with APIs in between. And if that's not some strategic thing that you want to achieve or strive to long term, then you should really think about how you slice up those teams. Another thing is you should also not do it too fast. When we're talking about organizational design, here are some problems with big teams. So if you have the small fantastic team that we talked about that is really passionate and has a lot of drive and purpose and mojo, and you just add people in, eventually communication is going to break down, because now there's 15, 20 people to sync between each other, and they're all doing it on the same thing. There's also going to be increased mental load because everyone's responsible for a part. There's no clear separation of who owns what, which will slow down decision making, dilute responsibility, decrease team cohesion, and it will slow your flexibility because you will need to agree on everything. You will need to onboard new members and talk between each other to split those responsibilities. Another key aspect is, even though having a big team means that you will need to reorganize it, if you reorganize too much, you actually break up the valuable thing that needs time to grow, nurture, and develop. And that is a team that has seen a couple of successes and a couple of failures sticks together, and they learn how to work with each other. If you're constantly shifting members around, rearranging teams, you lose that team cohesion and you lose that productivity gains that come from just knowing your buddies, knowing what they're capable of, and knowing that they have your back. I wanted an excuse to put a pizza there, so that comes from Amazon. It's attributed to Jeff Bezos. He says that when a team is too big to eat 2 pizzas, you should think about splitting it up. And I also love pizza, so. Next, this is a big topic, and I've seen a lot of different elements over the years apply. I've not yet been in an organization that really embraced team topologies fully, but we embraced a subset of it at various points in my career. So I think the most important one here is to think about what they call in team topology stream-aligned teams, where you take a segment of the business domain and give the team autonomy to take it from idea to production. Because that's how you get flexibility and speed, when the team is autonomous to do and deliver on the business goals directly. Then you have a couple other modes of teams. For example, an enabling team that could be like a DevOps team, not to hand over DevOps to, but to teach other teams within the company how to do DevOps, how to use the infrastructure that's provided, and so forth. Then you have complicated subsystem teams. Let's say that's a data mining analysis team who is working on a recommendation engine, which is some very niche, very domain specific thing. And then you have platform teams, for example, let's say that they're maintaining an internal cloud and developing an API and tools for other teams within the organization to use. That's when you have a big organization, it's useful to think in these terms. When you're still small, I find it really useful to think about how can we create stream-aligned teams that are independent and can go from idea to production. But that's a massive topic that we're not going to go into much. I will tell you another story though. So at another company that I was in, we had this problem where the organizational structure that we had didn't match with the actual day-to-day business practices. So there were a lot of unofficial communication channels that opened up because we needed to align 3 ways: who to hire, what kind of team to assemble, how to do the project, and none of that was autonomous. We were kind of split in different teams, but working on the same project, which meant that we needed to find ways to communicate with each other unofficially through Slack channels, and that really slowed down progress. If you think about stream-aligned teams, if we instead were more wholesomely structured, so that we could do a project end-to-end from, let's say, closing a sale to delivering tech, that would have been much faster with much lower overhead, and the responsibilities would be way clearer because we would know who decides on what. And I think that's very important to look at when you start seeing unofficial, out of chain of command communication channels appearing. That's probably a good signal that there's something wrong with the organizational structure that you have. Maybe you've overgrown it, maybe the mode of operation or just the reality of your product is so different to what you initially setup that you need to adjust. And that's hard to do because it's on a meta level. You need to see what's happening behind the screens, and also be aware that when you change the organizational structure, it's not just going to magically change the people's interactions just because you change it on org chart. It needs to be, you need to get buy-in from people as well. Back to the presentation. We talked about the strategic level of scaling a tech team. Now let's talk about the tactical. So what are some tactics for scaling? And here again, I'm using my secret sauce, but I would take a look at 3 key areas: hiring, onboarding, and integration. And the goal here is to reduce the time that it takes from a candidate appearing somewhere or a position being, even when a need appears, to a person being found, integrated, and wrote some code that he deployed to production, or was in some other way productive if they're not an engineer. That should be the metric. How quickly can we find somebody and have them be productive inside the company? Here's my secret sauce. When you're hiring, improve the hiring process. And that sounds super vague, and I'm not an HR expert. I'm sure there's more qualified people to tell you how to do that. From an engineering management standpoint, I see a lot of things that we can tweak, like reduce the amount of steps it takes to close a contract. Sometimes those interview processes are so complex, so long, and the question is, do they need to be? I know that in some countries it's really difficult to hire, to fire, because there's legal implications, but if you manage to shrink the time that it takes and the complexity of the hiring process itself, it means that you will frustrate the candidate less, which may result in you getting better candidates. Another key thing is write amazing job descriptions that tell the candidates exactly what they'll be working on so they can self-filter. A lot of times I see really generic job ads without any salary expectations, without anything concrete, and that means that everyone's going to be applying. Nobody will self-filter. So you will be shuffling through millions of applicants, and 95% of them, maybe 99% of them, are going to be a bad fit for you. Another crucial thing is you need to be careful with the junior-senior ratio. A sure way to shoot yourself in the foot is to hire too many junior people and not give them the support that they need in order to grow into senior, mid-level or senior engineers. Because when you hire a junior, you take on a lot of responsibility. You need to mentor that person, you need to give them access to coaching, continuous learning, and give them a buddy. But let's talk a little bit more about that now. So the second part to the secret sauce is the onboarding. So it helps to, now you've signed the contract, it helps to have an onboarding checklist so that you know what you need to do when a new person joins. A lot of the processes around creating accounts and these kind of things can be automated. You can improve the documentation, which means that they can read up on the things that are going inside the company. And the crucial thing is to have an amazing dev environment, because that will reduce the amount of time that they need in order to be productive. If a new joiner joins and they're struggling to clone the code from the repository and to set up a complex beast of interconnected dependencies, it's not working, there's nobody there to support them because everyone's too busy, you're going to have a really bad time. And if they need 2 weeks to get productive and a month before they can deploy something to production, that's a really bad metric. A good benchmark is they should be productive within 1 day. If they just check out the code and you have Docker and you have other dev environment tools. There's a linter there. There's VS Code configuration, and they just open it up. It runs in Docker. It connects to whatever it needs to be there, and they can just delve into the code. That's the gold standard. There's really no excuse not to have an amazing dev environment because it has so many benefits, not just to the new joiners, but also to the people who are inside the organization. And I know I'm ranting a little bit about this, but I really feel strongly about it. And it's one of the first things that I fix when I join an organization as a fractional CTO or a lead. Okay, before we dive into integration, let's check if there's some comments or questions, or if everyone is following along. Looks good. We're still on. Perfect. I like to do a little meet presentation check, or we're actually coming near the end, so I'm not going to bore you for an hour more. So let's get back into the secret sauce, the last of the three. So now we got our engineer or a new joiner through the hiring process. We got them set up and they're productive. Now they need to integrate. So how do you help them integrate within the team? You set up a buddy system, you give them a mentor within the organization, and you create an individual growth plan for them so that they have something to look forward to. Another thing that I missed to mention here is you need to give them the vision of what it is that you're doing and some clear goals. And then another thing that's connected to learning and improving them, give them access to learning platform, conferences, one-to-one coaching, because that will help them a lot. And now let's talk about the traps to avoid. So when you're scaling, these are all the things that can trip you over. The biggest one is maintaining culture as you're scaling. You're going to lose that warm, cozy feeling when everyone knows each other. So it's still important to create teams that are small enough and have that inside the organization, but then have an overall culture that you are promoting to all the teams that you have inside your organization. We talked about the junior choke, which is when you hire too many junior people and you don't give them the mentorship that they need. That's irresponsible. Please don't do that. Another one is death by middle management. When the organization grows and you add so many middle managers and everyone's a report of a report of a report, and at the end of the day nobody is solution oriented because everyone's just covering their own ass, and this is how you kill a successful organization. I'm not saying that middle management is bad. Middle management is bad when it's done badly. Another big one is silos. So when you split teams apart, if you don't fix the communication as well, you can end up creating silos, and that goes in many directions. You can put product into a silo, you can put the tech team into a silo. That's very common. You put some gatekeeper in front of the tech team, and that creates a lot of problems when product or others are trying to communicate. That's why it's really important to look at the communication channels within the organization and not just the structure of the tech team, because the tech team in isolation is a factor of growth, but not the only one. It's when the whole organization works well together when you get to see real business impact. Another one is that infrastructure complexity increases as the teams grow, and that's something to keep in mind. As you have more teams, it's going to be more complex. Then there's the law of diminishing returns. As you scale further and further, it will become much harder and harder to keep the productivity levels at the same pace. There's sometimes like the Pareto principle inside of big organization. I've seen that a lot, where 20% of people are actually doing the hard work and 80% are just coasting along. That's the fortunate reality of a lot of big organizations. Another one is that the vision tends to dilute if you're not careful and you're not really promoting that and keeping it in mind that the vision is really important. Because if the developers know and are passionate about the thing that they're building, they're going to do a much better job than if that's just their, we get paid, we do our tasks, we clean up Jira, not too fast, and we say no to everything that comes in. That's the other side of the polar opposite spectrum of having a fantastic tech team. So now we are nearing the end, but I already talked about this slide. It's as you're scaling, you need to maintain team cohesion. You need to keep the team cohesion and the vision and shared purpose as you are going forward. And that's hard to do, it takes effort, but it's really worth it in the end. And with that, we come to the end of our 30-minute presentation, and I would love to hear your questions. And of course, LinkedIn is kind of broken. So let me open my comments again and see what's going on. Maybe I'll try to open it in Safari. Sometimes the auth browser actually works. I see that there were some comments, so let's see if I can join live here. Okay, perfect. Carol says, I made the mistake of hiring juniors when I needed seniors, never again. I would say we've all done that mistake before, and it's not when, the problem is not when you're hiring a junior, it's not the problem is not the junior. I know it's going to sound brutal, but the problem is that you actually need a senior. You settle for a junior because of constraints, and then you don't have the capacity to give them the mentorship and the support that they need. Whose responsibility it is to organize the team, says Carol. That's a very good question. But let me just switch to the full screen so that I see you better. Hello. Let's see. The question is whose responsibility it is to come up with an organizational structure. And the answer is it depends, because it goes in many directions. You've got the tech team, which would be the CTO's responsibility if it's small to mid-size company. If it's a big company with many more people, that's going to be probably the VP of engineering who divides the teams according to the architecture that they need. But then the question is also who designs the overall architecture of the organization, and you need to look one level beyond that, and that's where the senior leadership needs to figure out a way. Maybe that's a COO, or maybe that's the CEO, depending on the size of the company. But I would start there. It's really important to know that those communication structures will impact the productivity of the tech team. So the way you design the whole organization will impact the output. I'll give you one example. Let's say you have the tech team and they're kind of siloed. They've got a manager, maybe that's the CTO, maybe that's just a head engineer, and you've just got a couple of engineers working with them. And the more senior leader is gatekeeping all the features that they're coming in. But you have different departments, you have sales, you have marketing, and they all need features from the tech team. So that's a very common situation, but because the tech team prioritizes the features that they think they're most important, they are going to be mostly working on things related to the product, which means that support, marketing will always come last. Now, if you restructure and you actually give an engineer to marketing and say, why wouldn't you have engineering department inside marketing? If you're doing a lot of pixels, maybe you have a dedicated team, and then that's where we come to team topologies and seeing how you can slice that. But a common mistake is to try to organize the company according to profession and say all the designers in the design department, all the programmers in the development department, all the infrastructure engineers in the DevOps department. That's a very naive way to structure an organization, and it leads to unrealistic communication lines, which are then ad hoc adjusted, and it creates chaos and a lot of mess and a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong. Good, let's see, more questions. Carol asks, do you use any framework for this buddy system? I don't have a framework for it. I'm not that familiar. I just know that it's good to pair people and say, hey, you know, when somebody is coming in, find them somebody who doesn't have too many buddies, pair them up together so that they are quicker to integrate into the system. But I'm sure that HR experts have better ways to facilitate that process. From my experience, I've just seen it's very beneficial when you have that system in place. How do you keep the vision alive once you scale? Another excellent question from Carol. It's difficult, but not impossible. The main thing is that needs to be a desire on the highest level, because the vision comes from the C-level leadership. And then it needs to trickle down across all layers of the organization. So if you do a poor job of letting your vision, giving your vision to your direct reports, and they do a bad job of giving your vision to their direct reports, then it breaks down. Because it's easier when there's just one team, just one level. You say we're doing this because of this, and that's it. People get on board. But when it's multiple layers, deep down, it kind of dilutes. And I think the problem is that we are thinking in terms of what's a vision, what's a goal, and we're doing OKRs which have no basis with the business, no basis with reality whatsoever. And they're not useful because nobody can get around 15 OKRs that we're doing in the next quarter. But if you focus on one really important one that you say, you know, maybe you have a lot of errors in the system and it's really important to improve the stability, and you say, okay, we're gonna improve the frequency of bugs, we're gonna bring the frequency of bugs down by 90%. And you say, because we care about our users and that's our current priority, they're complaining and we're seeing a lot of churn. And maybe you also put a marker on that you want to see a reduction in churn, and then the team can get behind that. They can see, okay, we're really bleeding money. And if you put a number behind it, like how much does this impact the business actually? That's where you get to see people understand, oh shit, that's real money that's being lost, as opposed to who cares about 5% here and there. People need to feel the impact, and they need to care about the impact. And that's how you dilute it down. But it takes effort, it takes time, it's not easy. That's why a lot of organizations do that in a half-hearted attempt, which then completely misses the point and creates a lot of frustration. The tech team doesn't really care, and at the end of the day, that's how you bring your productivity levels down by a lot, because people are not problem solving, they're not in that mindset, but they're just like, it's not for us. Exactly. You have to make sure that you have a ripple effect in your vision, in your communication, and be intentional about this. That's a very good observation, Carol. Perfect. Let's see, are there any more questions? I still see there's people on the stream, so don't be shy. Write a question, give me feedback. I would love to hear what you thought about the presentation. It really helps me when I'm preparing new content to see what resonated with you, if the format is good, and just your thoughts in general. But I want to also say that I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come to my presentation and listen to me ramble about scaling a tech team for 40 minutes now. It means a lot. Let's see, I'm gonna check LiveStream if there's some more comments that fell through. Maybe they're on YouTube. Nope. Okay, I think we're gonna slowly wrap up if there's no more questions. Yeah. I can still see you. You're there, but you're shy to write your comment in the box. But that's all right, because I'm gonna keep doing this and you're gonna get the confidence to write in that scary little box. Okay, let's wrap up. This was live stream number 4, where we took a look at how to scale a tech team strategically, and then we looked at some tactics into what you can do to improve that process. I don't have a topic for the next event yet, but it's going to be next Friday at 2 p.m. because I'm keeping it on schedule, and it's evolving like a series, so it might take a turn. If you have any suggestions or things that really resonated with you and you would like to see more of, then I kindly invite you to let me know. You can also write me a personal message if that feels more comfortable to you. And I want to thank you sincerely for coming to the stream, taking time out of your valuable day, and hopefully you enjoyed the presentation as much as I did preparing it for you. I'm going to see you next week on Friday at 2 p.m. with a new topic, so check the LinkedIn events, follow me, and we'll see each other real soon. Take care, bye. Okay.